of Police, I wish to strongly condemn the brazen, heinous, and senseless killing of Special Reserve Officer Kyle Lashley.
Sources indicate the murder of SRP Kyle Lashley could be linked to gangs in Trinidad fighting for turf in Tobago. Following the murder on Saturday night, Acting Police Commissioner MacDonald Jacob said stop and search exercises were conducted.
The head of the Tobago Division, Senior Superintendent Jackman, coordinated an entire exercise where he cordoned off various major points in Tobago with the support of the task force CID, other patrol officers, and also personnel from the Defense Force headed by Colonel Ned.
Additional personnel joined officers on Sunday.
Earlier this morning, a contingent of officers from the Interagency Task Force also joined the team to assist them to deal with the issue.
While officers were in search of the suspects who murdered SRP Lashley, there was another shooting, this time in Scarborough, on Saturday night. Ezra Sylvester was shot in the arm and had to be hospitalized.
Officers who were on patrol pursued that vehicle, and that vehicle was abandoned shortly after the men escaped, but the car now is in the custody of the police, and our forensic persons are doing the necessary.
And with the murder toll in Tobago higher than last year, and now in double digits, Acting Commissioner of Police MacDonald Jacob is concerned about the rise in violent crimes on the island.
It is something that we are looking at carefully because we have not yet reached the end of the year. Therefore, we will be putting all things in place to ensure that we don't get additional murders in Tobago.
The top cop said lawmen would continue to be relentless and Tobago would be provided with the necessary support to root out this new development. He also extended condolences on behalf of the executive of the TTPS to the family and colleagues of PC Lashley. Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News.
That was from our reporting last night on the TV6 News. And let's get some reaction to these troubling developments over the weekend in the Sister Isle. We have Attorney at Law and Head of the Tobago Business Chamber, Martin George, with us this morning. Very good morning to you. Mr. George, what do you make of this? Good morning to you.
Yeah, hi, good morning to you, Fazir. And, the thing is, while we're happy to see the TTPS, rouse from its slumber and, swing into action in force, I guess, because a police officer was killed this time. This is a call to action that I have been making for, the longest while, both in my personal capacity as an attorney and as the chairman of the Tobago Business Chamber. I have said that the TTPS ought to take responsibility for Tobago as a start, because Tobago is the smallest police division within the TTPS. So don't tell me that you cannot manage and govern and police Tobago effectively to make it safe and secure. The thing is, coming after the fact and sending a battalion of troops across and having this great show of force with roadblocks and stop and search exercises, you basically trying to stuff the go bar back into the cow after there's a whole big heap of mess. If you understand me. Why are you coming now with this grand, charade of, activity to make it look like you're doing something, when you ought to be engaging all the time in preventative measures to try to ensure that you stop the flow of illegal guns into Tobago, you stop the flow of illegal drugs into Tobago, and there are several simple strategies that I have espoused from time to time which seem to fall on deaf ears. you know, but they seem to love this you know, this pretense, and, you know, they go and they rough up ordinary citizens, you know, disturb them with roadblocks, you know, people who just might be trying to get to work, you know, trying to go about their business, maybe going to church, wherever, you know, but they have this big, massive show of force to make it look like you're doing something. I'm sorry, I'm not impressed. With the greatest of respect, I am totally unimpressed. I'm underwhelmed by the performance of the TTPS in terms of making Tobago safe and secure.
You do really come up with some interesting analogies, pushing the Gobar back into the call, but let's leave that there for the moment before any more manure hits the fan in that regard. But I mean, we might be smiling and laughing, but I struggle to understand why we are yet to fully appreciate that prevention is better than cure, that it is about, you know, the necessary interventions before tragedies like this unfold. And indeed, many people can reference the Trinidad experience, where you have a situation where if a soldier is killed in Rich Plain or wherever, they lock down the place, they close up the whole place and so on. But the crime has already happened, the murder has already happened. And here we have another situation where there's a tremendous presence. But do you get a sense, Martin George, which is the question I really want to ask, that either the police or various arms of our protective services are moving to the level of prevention and interdiction and intervention, to cut off the fruit before it even begins to flower, before it starts to ripen on the stem?
Well, Faziri, I think you already know the answer to that. The answer is clearly no. And I mean, you ask any average citizen as to whether they feel that there are preventative measures in place to make them feel safe and secure in Trinidad and Tobago, and the majority of the population will candidly tell you no. You know, I've seen reports in the newspapers over the weekend about, you know, Tuna Puna, about Enterprise, about all these areas. And I mean, the thing is, it is going to be ridiculous if Tobago, which is dependent on a tourism economy, is a place where people don't feel safe. Even for, and I mean, I'm not just talking about overseas visitors, you know, for the average Trinidadian, the greatest feeling you have when you are in Tobago is that you tell yourself, well, hey, look, at least I could let my guard down. I could feel safe. I could relax with my family. I could feel secure. I could go out for dinner at night, and I don't have to be looking to see if any car is following me. You know, I could come back home and I don't have to be looking around to see, you know, if anybody's waiting to ambush me or, you know, steal my car or anything of the sort. So the point is, this is critical for Tobago. And I mean, when you think even from the perspective of foreigners, with these advisories that have been issued by the US and the UK, I mean, although I have my own take on that, because I mean, the US should be the last place that should be issuing advisories against anybody, you know, I mean, when you think of the number of mass killings that occurs there, you know, on a regular basis, but that's a separate point. The fact of the matter is, the average visitor who is coming here, when they see the reports on crime and criminality, obviously it's a disincentive. I mean, who is going to pack their bags, you know, with wife, family, children, and say, oh yes, we're going to this crime-ridden country, you know, we're going for an adventure, you know, let's go and explore this place where, you know, it's rated as, you know, one of the higher numbers in crime. I mean, really? I mean, unless you know, some kind of war journalist or something, so you really not going to do that.
Although it has to be pointed out, and this is what was highlighted towards the end of last week, Tobago finished second, got the silver medal in the Wanderlust Travel Awards at the World Travel Awards in London, second to the island of Palawan in the Philippines, because from what I understand, the Wanderlust World Travel Awards is kind of like an off-the-beaten track, where there are undiscovered treasures around the world. So here you have a situation where Tobago has been positively highlighted at these awards, only to go online and realize that a police officer just got killed in Tobago.
And then somebody else was shot in Scarborough shortly after. You know, so I mean, the point is, it's undoing all the, you know, work that you try to do in terms of, you know, establishing your brand as a tourism destination. And that's why I also call upon the THA to take some responsibility for Zero. It's not just the TTPS. I mean, while of course the TTPS has to be front and center, the THA also has a role in this. We heard some weeks ago the Chief Secretary, Mr. Farley Augustine, indicate that he's going to be trying to roll out some plan for safety and security in Tobago. We have heard nothing from him since. And I mean, if this isn't a wake-up call for him, I don't know what is, because as you say, juxtaposed against that award, it tarnishes the silver. It begins to look almost like it's copper with a thin veneer of silver plating, so that you scratch the surface and then you realize, hey, is copper or brass they give me? So that award really is hinged upon you ensuring the safety and security of not just your visitors, but your ordinary citizens. And I always make that point for you. I am not just calling for safety and security for visitors. I want the average Trinbagonian to be able to feel safe in Tobago and also in Trinidad. But what I'm saying to the TTPS is, okay, all right, maybe you have felt that Trinidad is, whoa, the horse has bolted. So you figure you can't pull it back. You're trying to tell me you can't pull back Tobago? You can't make Tobago a safe space? 60,000 people in a small space of 116 square miles? If you cannot do that, then you are basically unfit for your job. As the arm of the state that is supposed to guarantee our safety and security. If you cannot make Tobago a safe space, if you cannot have persons who are on the ground, who are able to get information, who are able to infiltrate the areas, the hotspots in Tobago, and amazingly for you, all the people in Tobago know where the areas are.
Well, that's what I was going to just ask you, Martin
like
George.
Bethel, they'll tell you places like Montpelier. Everybody knows. So it's an open secret.
And this is my point. I mean, I'm from El Socorro. I know where all the criminal areas are. I know where all the coke dealers are. I grew up with half of them. In the same way in Tobago, such a small space. I mean, you're trying to tell me that the police don't know where the criminal elements are, that they have gone into hiding. Where you can hide in Tobago?
Exactly. And that's the point for you. And the thing is, I also want to disassemble some of the false narrative that has been bandied about for quite some time by Tobagonians, whereby they love to rely on the comfort zone to say, well, look, it's always Trinidadians coming across to Tobago and committing the crimes. For you, the reality is, if one looks at the statistics over the last few years, quite a few of the persons who have been arrested and charged are their own homegrown, homebred criminals. They are young Tobagonians, little good boy Johnny, who is good boy by day, bandit by night. That's what we are seeing. So let's not pretend, let's not bury our heads in the sand. Let's understand that, look, Tobago, we have an issue, we have a challenge. Let's face up to it. Let's begin to ensure that we put some kind of system in place whereby people can, I guess, maybe, make sure that they report things that they see or report instances of criminal activity so that you can have some effective policing to deal with it. I remember some years ago, a strategy was tried and it proved quite effective. I mean, of course, it was a short-term strategy where they changed out quite a lot of the police officers in Tobago and they brought in some from Trinidad who the communities did not know. And as a result, these officers were able to get some effective results because some of the Tobago police officers are too comfortable within the communities because it's either this one is their cousin or their nana and tanty friend or, their sister, boyfriend, girl, that kind of thing. So that type of pumpkin vine networking sometimes works against the effectiveness and efficaciousness of the TTPS because there is such an interrelation and interconnectivity between the police officers and the bandits that there may be either that reluctance to take action or you turn a blind eye. And that could never be good for solving the crime situation in Tobago.
And before we conclude our discussion, and we always thank you for taking the time to chat with us, part of the discussion in Trinidad has also been about a greater army presence on the streets of Trinidad, whether that would provide greater reassurance for citizens to see soldiers working alongside police patrols and so on. What's your view on that, if that were to be considered for Tobago, for example?
I have consistently, shut down that idea as arrant nonsense. That's not the role of an army, plain and simple. That's not the role of soldiers. You have a TTPS that is over 7,000 members strong. What on earth are they doing? Is it that half of them are in New York on suspension and working for US dollars up there? Where are they? Where are your members? Why on earth do we need to call upon the army and soldiers to, again, and this is just a show. That's all it is. It's a show of force that, you come out with these big long guns and you parade in your jack boots, and make it look as if you're doing something. It's as useless as Anaconda. If you remember Howard Chinley's famous Anaconda, which, took place at 8 a.m., on a Monday morning, while law-abiding citizens trying to go to work, you having this roadblock snarling traffic for miles, and you're supposed to be fighting crime. At that time, all self-respecting bandits home in their mother house sleeping, waiting for nighttime to go out again. So what rubbish is that? So therefore, the idea of bringing the army, it's just a PR exercise to make it look to the public as if, well, oh gosh, yes, we police in the streets. That's not policing. A soldier is not a policeman.
Okay,
the soldier's
but just
role
quickly,
and duty is not to police the streets.
I hear you on that, but as an act of desperation, if the police can't do the job and the soldiers stand down there polishing shoes and shining medals, give them something to do.
Yeah, but for you, that you see, the thing is, we must never let desperation be the source of our thoughts, words, or actions. You might be in a desperate situation, but you must never act in desperation. That's the difference. And that's where good leadership comes about. So in other words, you may realize you're in a desperate situation, but you don't just act desperately in a knee-jerk reaction and say, well, okay, bring out the soldiers. Really, what is that going to achieve? When you need to go back to the roots of good, proper policing, you need to have proper investigations, proper detecting. I remember years ago, you used to have police officers who used to go undercover. I remember those who used to disguise themselves as Rastas, disguise themselves as gang leaders, and they infiltrate the areas and the communities, get information, and they do. Which police officer now doing that? All of them sitting down in air-conditioned offices with cable TV, and they're ordering KFC, and they're ordering Pizza Hut, and they're relaxing. When they're driving about, they're driving in air-conditioned cars with the glass up, right? And probably Buju Banton blasting on the radio, because the point is they are very comfortable and relaxed. They are not doing the basics of police work. So therefore, do not now try to rely on the army to do for you what you are being paid to do, because then if that's the case, then dismantle the TTPS and let the army run the show. Let us become, a military state. It makes absolutely no sense. So I am not going to give them that cop-out to say, well, they're relying on the army. You are there, you have 7,000 strong, do your job.
Martin George, you couldn't have said it any more directly. In fact, you started with the issue of the gobar and the cow, but it was an interesting discussion. And indeed, but it is a very serious, and we're talking about a life and death situation that we face in Trinidad and Tobago as well. Thank you very much, as always, for taking the time.
Always a pleasure. Have a great morning. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Attorney at Law Martin George and Chairman of the Tobago Business Chamber. As we go to a break at 7:41, here's an image from Hubert Rance in Vista Bella, taken at his home, and it's the very nice colors of the evening as we go to a break.